And now let's get some analysis on this. Joining me is Tarik Oguzlu. He's a professor of international relations at Istanbul Aydin University. He joins me now from Istanbul. Professor, good to see you. Good to have you here with us. Now, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan appears to be quite optimistic that President Putin will rejoin this initiative. But certainly the circumstances revolving this deal do not look very favorable, do they?
I agree with you, actually. Let me start with the Turkish position, actually. Turkey has put lots of investment on this issue over the last year. And because of Turkish go-between roles, because of Turkish investment in the deal, it has been extended many times in the past. And Turkey will continue to do its best to make sure that when Russian leader, President Putin visits Turkey in August, maybe they will find a kind of compromise solution. This is going to be in Turkey's foreign policy interest. This is going to be in Russian national interest as well. But we should also take into account the geopolitical perspective in order to make sense of why Russia has declined to agree to the extension of the deal. In recent past, three significant events occurred, which, from my own perspective, might have led the Russian leadership to put a stop to this deal. First, NATO summit meeting took place in Vilnius, and in which many historical decisions were adopted. Ukraine was given a very encouraging signals in terms of its future accession to the club. This has caused a great degree of anxiety on the part of Russia. Second of all, today, early in the morning, if I am not mistaken, there was a kind of attack on the Kerch Bridge in Ukraine, connecting Russian mainland to the Crimean Peninsula. This from my own perspective, might have also caused a degree of anxiety and anger on the part of Russian leadership. And finally, we had this Wagner mutiny in Russia in recent days, and this seems also have increased the feeling of nationalism or anti-Americanism in one way or another, because this has led President Putin to prove its nationalist credentials in the eyes of the Russian people. If you also take into account the fact that Turkey, as a staunch member of the NATO alliance, giving its green light to Swedish accession to the club, this might also a little bit, this might have also angered the Russian leadership in one way or another. So if you combine all these three factors, you might come to the conclusion that Russia, with Putin, might have wanted to give a message to international community, and including Turkey as well. But I am optimistic about the possibility of further extending the deal when Putin visits Turkey next month.
Right, so there are certainly chances, but we'll have to wait and see what happens when the Turkish president speaks to the Russian president. Now, one way or the other, this deal is related to the war in Ukraine. Tell me, to what extent do you think Russia halting its participation in this initiative give Moscow an upper hand in the battlefield?
I am not that much optimistic about the possibility of Russia halting its cooperation with the deal, and this might positively impact Russian chances on the battlefield, because it is very certain that many countries all around the globe, particularly in the global south, would strongly react to this Russian decision. This will not serve Russian national interests, but I think Russia feels a little bit cornered and surrounded in the eastern part of Ukraine, and the war in Ukraine is not going much well from the Russian perspective. So if you put this Russian decision into the background, everything will be much more challenging and difficult from Russian side. And this will not serve Russian national interests, neither globally nor concerning the war in Ukraine.
Professor Tarik Oguzlu, thank you very much for talking to us here on TRT World.